The president has decided 4 regions, including Metro Manila, 2 provinces, and 1 city, will transition to a more relaxed general community quarantine or GCQ starting June 1st. Trisha Trada now joins us on the line to give us the details. Trisha, good morning. What can you tell us?
Yes, Ria, the president has approved recommendations to ease quarantine measures after May 31st. Starting June 1, Metro Manila will shift to general community quarantine. Davao City, Pangasinan, Albay, Regions 2, 3, and 4A will also be under GCQ. The rest of the country will be placed under modified general community quarantine. National Task Force Chief Carlito Galvez tells the president his team is looking into Bohol as a possible candidate or model for the new normal. It remains COVID-free, and if things get even better and preparations have been laid out, then Galvez says they may resume tourism activities in Bohol sometime in June or July. Ria?
Trisha, can you tell us again, just very briefly, what happens when we shift to GCQ?
Basically, most industries may resume operations under GCQ. Now, depending on the industry category, more non-essential industries may have 50% of their workforce on site, while others can go full force. Of course, work from home setup is still very much encouraged. We've got a long list of establishments for that, so let's just go to what's not allowed. Industries or establishments tagged as leisure are still not allowed, like gyms, entertainment venues, play areas, among others. Individuals 21 years old and below and about 60 years old are not allowed to leave their homes except for senior citizens who need to report to work and to get essential items. Interior Secretary Eduardo Años says quarantine passes are no longer required, but there will still be strict border security. In fact, even if they don't require quarantine passes, they will now require travel passes to individuals who intend to move from one province to another, just to make sure that the travel is essential. And you add, expect modified checkpoints in strategic locations to prevent road congestion. Public transportation will also operate at a limited capacity. Back to you.
Well, Trish, you mentioned it, transportation. How will the transportation scheme look like once we move to GCQ?
Well, it's important to note that trains will operate at a very limited capacity, about 10 to 12% in MRT and LRT, and up to 35% for PNR. Transportation Secretary Arthur Togade says since these trains can't accommodate as many passengers as before, the Transportation Department will have a bus augmentation system. There will be 300 to 500 buses for this special system following the route of the trains. Now, these buses will have a dedicated lane on EDSA that they will share with point-to-point buses. Togade adds authorities are setting up bike lanes, and if the system works, the transportation agency commits to making permanent bike lanes. The agency will also carry out cashless or digital payment transactions for TNBS, taxis, and buses. Ria?
What about air travel? What's that going to look like in the GCQ?
Domestic travel will be allowed from GCQ to GCQ areas. Togade also announced that international airport gateways will now include Clark and Davao starting June 1. He says there will be testing facilities at these airports very soon, but while waiting for the completion of the testing labs on site, Togade says there are accredited hospitals in Clark and Davao that can do COVID tests. DOTR intends to add more international gateways as well in the coming weeks. It's eyeing to include Zamboanga, Iloilo, Bacolod, and Bohol. Back to you.
Secretary Leonor Briones of the Department of Education was at the meeting. What's the update on school openings?
Well, it's just a reiteration of what's been said these past days. Briones supported the president's idea to suspend face-to-face learning, and President Duterte, for his part, is also in favor of DepEd's blended learning. Now, this will make use of TV, radio, and online platforms. Schools may also send printed materials via barangays to those who do not have access to any of these. Meantime, the president's also asking the education department or schools to allow installment payments for tuition fees. He's also offering loans to parents to pay for their enrollment fees via land bank. Ria?
Now, in almost all of the president's addresses, if not all, he's been reiterating the need for a vaccine. What did the president have to say about this in his latest pronouncements?
Well, the president is counting on the efforts of China. He hopes to have a vaccine soon, at least sooner than his earlier projected timeline in January. I think it's better to listen to the president in his own words.
Ang target nila is September. September, I think China will be able to distribute, if I'm not mistaken, and the other countries are catching up. Kaya lang, itong China, hindi ito hambog, wala itong ere, but they work, and I'm very sure that they will be the first one of the countries that would be able to come up with the vaccine.
Well, that's the latest from the president, and in terms of the search for a vaccine. Back to you.
Finally, Tricia, last night, Secretary Anyo reported on lower crime rates as quarantine protocols were set. Can you tell us more about that?
Right. Anyo says crime rate is down by 60%. Fire incidents were also reduced by 5%. And the president has something to say about this as well.
Alam niyo, if you heard him correctly, I was talking about enforcement and the role of the police. I repeat, there is no martial law in the Philippines. Far from it. We are exercising the power of the state to protect public health. That is all there is to it.
President Duterte assures the public law enforcement authorities will only implement the law. Now, towards the end of the president's speech, he cleared Health Secretary Francisco Duque of alleged anomalous purchases of testing equipment. The president says his office will send a report about what actually transpired. Ria?
Thank you very much for that, Tricia Terada.